So today, Ole joining me on a quest. This is a quest to recreate a sweetbread that I made either last year or 2020. I think it's 2020, but these 2 years is a blur, so I really can't remember. But while we was on lockdown, a brethren of mine, he was lamenting how, Christmas is not Christmas without his mother sweetbread. And we couldn't travel, so he couldn't get to go and get his mother sweetbread. So I was like, you know what? I will try and make a sweetbread for him now. So I made this sweetbread, and let me tell you something. It was the perfect sweetbread. It was real best. When I tell you the sweetbread was best, it was best. I'm going to post a picture. I paint up a picture on the screen here. All you can see, all you can just watch that picture and see how best that sweetbread was. It was best. And let me tell you, the biggest misstep I have ever made since I started doing this channel is not writing down the recipe that I used to make that sweetbread. So now, on this perpetual quest to recreate it. I have tried since to do it again, and it didn't come out the same way. I know beforehand that this recipe that I'm going to use today is not going to come out the same way, but it's going to come out close. It's close enough so I can share this recipe. This is a good sweetbread recipe. It is not the same one that I did then. That one was perfect. This one not perfect, but it's best still. So I'm sharing it. So, enough talk, we jump into it one time. So the first thing we want to do in this sweetbread recipe is hydrate our raisins or currants. So add in some boiling water to this. And we're just gonna set this aside and let them plump back up, right? I think this is an essential step because you want to set our dry raisins or some nice moist raisins up in your sweetbread. And I am not a mixed peel person. I know some people like the mixed peel and the fruit and thing. That's not really my scene. I don't like my sweetbread with all that. Just raisins, good enough for me. But of course, if you like mixed peel, if you like the fruits and that kind of thing, the dried fruits, by all means put that in if you want. But for me, these good enough. So for the dry ingredients, I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt. I'd have 1 cup of brown sugar, and yes, 1 cup is a lot of sugar, but this is a sweetbread, so it had to be sweet, right? So 1 cup of brown sugar. And my spice of choice for sweetbread is tonka bean. Now, of course, if you want to use cinnamon, nutmeg, that kind of thing, go ahead, you could use that, feel free. But for me, and this recipe in particular, tonka bean is my spice of choice. So I'm going with 2 tonka beans, gonna grate that in. And no, you will not find tonka bean in the grocery. If you want to find tonka bean, you have to go in the market, check by anybody who's selling spices, and you will get tonka bean. Add in some freshly grated coconut, 1 cup. So now you want to combine all the dry ingredients. Make sure they're well incorporated. And for the wet ingredients, we're going to crack 1 egg. Beat that. Add in 1 1/4 cups of coconut milk. And a couple dashes of coconut essence. You want that coconut flavor going right through. Let's get that a little mix, combine that. All right, so add in 3 ounces of room temperature butter to the mix. And this is unsalted butter, because remember we already added salt previously. And add in our wet mixture to the dry ingredients. And now we want to combine all of this. Make sure that it's well combined. And I almost forget to add our raisins that we had hydrating in the hot water. Of course, you want to drain off the hot water before you add the raisins. And you really want to make sure that this is well combined. You don't want no dry flour spots when you finish combine this mixture, because that will just mean dry flour spots or dry batter in the final sweetbread. And we don't want that. All right, we're looking well combined here. So now I'm gonna prep our baking pan for the sweetbread batter. All right, so now you wanna butter your bread pan. And do not be afraid of adding too much butter because listen, what you don't want is that your sweetbread sticking up in the pan and you can't get it out. So don't be afraid to butter the pan. So I'm going with your hands too, like, don't be afraid. This is a non-stick pan and still I going in with a generous amount of butter. 1, to give it a nice crust, and 2, to make sure that my sweetbread don't stick in the pan. Now we're gonna add our sweetbread mixture to the pan. Now this one kind of form the top of the loaf. Now remember, it's a sweetbread. The top of a sweetbread not supposed to be smooth. So we're not going for smooth, right? For me, the top of a sweetbread must have that kind of bumpy kind of finish, like how Granny used to make it. That is the sign of a good sweetbread. If your sweetbread smooth on the top, sorry, I don't want it. Sweetbread had to be rough. And for the final touches, I like to grate a little bit of fresh coconut on top. I mean, coconut is the main ingredient in sweetbread. So why not add a little extra coconut on top? Nice presentation, extra coconut flavor, and a little texture on the top as well. And again, this is a sweet bread, so I add in a little bit of brown sugar again on the top. This is not a sour bread. This is not just a bread. It's a sweet bread, right? So that'll be sweet. Nice, so now our sweet bread is ready for the oven. And an important note, I know most baking, recipes, you would hear 350 degrees for how much ever time. This, no 350 degrees. You go in at 300 degrees for 90 minutes. For an hour and a half at 300 degrees, that is what we're going for. We don't want this to bake too fast. I don't want it to get color too fast. I want it to bake at a lower temperature and for it to maintain its moisture. So 300 degrees for 90 minutes into the oven. Okay, so 90 minutes later, we out of the oven. I took the sweetbread out of the bread pan and of course let it cool for about 30 minutes. Let me tell you, inside here smelling real good. And again, the scent of that tonka bean coming through, real nice. And I mean, look how we looking here now. Nice crust going on, as I tell you. If your top of your sweetbread smooth, we don't want that. Nice and rough. Character, your sweetbread must have character. You have the nice pieces of grated coconut on top, the little brown sugar sprinkled, and of course, the raisins coming through. Yeah, man, I think we looking proper here. And the next thing is to cut into it and then we really see what's going on under the hood. So I'm gonna just give you the cross section here. You need the cross section. Grab the knife, and now, moment of truth. Nice crust. Must have that crust action going on. Boom. That's what we're talking about there. Nice and moist on the inside, see that there? Nice and soft. And then we have a nice little crust, a little ring going on. That is what we're talking about. So, as I say, I know I wasn't gonna nail it, the identical, to get the identical results that I got the first time I make it, but this recipe comes pretty close. I don't know if I'll ever be able to recapture that exact sweetbread, but this recipe, it comes pretty close to that first one I made. So yeah, I mean, the only thing left to do is, of course, add the most important ingredient to this, and that is some Parlour cheese, some shop cheese, loose cheese, rat cheese, however you just call it. If you know, you know. The only thing that is complete a nice warm slice of sweetbread is a cold piece of cheese. Nice little sliced in, not too thick, not too thin. Right on top of here. Boom. And then we go in for a taste. I got you on top. My mouth full. Only give me a minute. This sweetbread taking me back to when I go by my grandmother, and she say, "It has some sweetbread there in the kitchen." And they go and they cut that piece of sweetbread and eat that. That's what it taking me back to. Or it taking me back to Saturday night, scouting for talent. You know, your mother makes some bread and then she throw in a sweetbread just for good measure now. So eat some bread and then you eat a piece of sweetbread for dessert after your dinner. All you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you're old enough to know about scouting for talent and them kind of thing. But yeah, proper. This is a proper recipe. As I say, it's not the perfect recipe, because the perfect recipe was that one that I make for my brethren. But this one, best, real best. So if you look at other recipes online, or a recipe that you might have that you're accustomed using, they would typically use a combination of spices to do sweetbread. It would be like a nutmeg and a cinnamon and that kind of thing. But for this, I really wanted to focus on featuring the main ingredient in the sweetbread, which for me is the coconut. So we stayed focused on the coconut, and I think the tonka bean was a real nice spice to pair it with, to kind of accentuate the flavor of the coconut in the sweetbread. So it do have a lot going on in the sweetbread. It's not, you know, a cacophony of flavors happening here. What it is just a few ingredients to kind of complement each other and bring out the most flavor out of the sweetbread. So it's very coconutty because we have the coconut milk, we have the grated coconut, and we have the coconut essence in there. And then the tonka bean is the spice that adds a nice kind of warm, comforting feeling that you just get when you eat a sweetbread. Perfect. Now, if you do have tonka bean and you can't get tonka bean, it's all right. Use the cinnamon, use the nutmeg. But trust and believe, the tonka bean in this, thumbs up ratings. So yeah, solid recipe. Again, not the perfect one. The perfect one is the one I make that time. And I'm still trying to recreate it, but this is a real best recipe to share, because this, as you can see, is a real best sweetbread. So if you like this recipe, please give the video a thumbs up and give it a share. And if you do try it, post your photos to social media, tag us in it, would love to see it. And of course, the full recipe will be posted in a link in the video description, so look out for that. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy baking.